person which we have as an expert today, he's more than expert to me, a mentor, a friend, a colleague who has been here in the university. He knows the nitty-gritty. And to be very honest, this is not simply a talking for the sake of talking. We have been doing a lot of research in terms of sports sciences, and he is the perfect person which reflects to the community of research and coach. By the way, he is also a very good and a profound coach in terms of football. And he does need an introduction in India, especially because when it comes to experts, we usually used to find familiar faces, celebrities rather. But when it comes to researchers, when it comes to academia, it is important to acknowledge who are the backbones of Indian sporting ecosystem. So not just to acknowledge, but to learn, I invite Dr. Thapa to initiate this session, and I'll be personally taking note of it as always. Thank you so much, sir. Please join us.
Hello. Pointer. Hello. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Utsav, for that very warm introduction. And thank you for inviting me to this very important conversation. Let me start with a simple question. How many of you here in the hall work with athletes? As a coach, researcher, scientist, or an administrator? Great. Now, let me be honest that the things that I'm going to share today would be directly or indirectly affecting every one of us in the sporting ecosystem. My name is Dr. Rohit Thapa. I'm an assistant professor at the Symbiosis School of Sports Sciences. And for the several years, I've worn two different hats. By training and by profession, I'm an academic researcher. I hold a PhD in physical education and the credentials that comes with it. In addition, I'm also an accredited football coach. And for the past few years, I've been working with athletes, coach them, not at the highest level, but at university level. And I've sincerely felt the gap between what I read in research papers and what actually work on the field. Okay. Therefore, I'm here to share about something that keeps me awake at night. Okay. Something that is costing us Olympic medals. Something that is costing us athletes' health. Something that is costing us the competitive edge that we desperately need. Okay. And yes, I'm talking about the disconnect between researchers and coaching practice. And let me be honest again, this is not just a simple communication problem. This is a systemic issue, okay, that is costing us top performance, particularly for a country like India, where athletes are hungry to win medals. Let me begin my session by sharing few stories from my personal experiences. Picture this, small-sided possession game for football, soccer, okay, commonly known as rondos. Okay. It is played in a confined area where one team tries to keep the ball in possession and the other team tries to win the ball. Okay. It involves passing, it involves receiving, moving with the ball, decision making, and above all, it warms up the player. And it is fun. Now, the origin dates back to 1970s, by the famous coach Rinus Michels and Johan Cruyff. And over the last 5 decades, many coaches and teams have adopted the use of this warm-up protocol in their practice. But here is something very interesting. The evidence to support its use for warm-up came up recently in 2023 by our research group, wherein we showed that it can be used as a warm-up protocol. Now, for the past 5 decades, coaches have been using it without evidence. Now imagine if 5 decades back, this evidence would be available, how many more athletes could have benefited from the warm-up protocol and how much more we could have advanced. I'll give you another example. Just after our study was published, we had a similar study on basketball using small-sided games for basketball warm-up. This is how science advances from football to basketball. Story number 2, complex training. This training method combines resistance exercise and ballistic exercise within a single session. And I've been doing research on this particular topic for the past 7 years. And more recently, we have published meta-analytical evidence to support its use compared to single mode training. Okay? But my question here is, how long will it take for this research to get into practice? We don't know. I don't know. It might take 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. But the question here is, how soon it should get into practice. Story number 3 here again, plyometric jump training. It's a training method where you use your own body mass to improve performance. Very cost effective, requires minimal to no equipment. And more recently, our research group suggests that 120 jumps may be an optimal dose for performance enhancement. What does it mean? It simply means anything beyond 120 jumps would not induce performance, which means anything beyond 120 jumps would be causing fatigue, causing injury risk. Now, I have seen many coaches using more than 120 jumps in practice. I am a coach myself, and I have many friends as a coach, and they use somewhere around 500, 600, up to 800 jumps per session. Now, is it good? That's something we need to ask. So now, from these 3 stories, what I want to convey here is there is a huge gap between what we do in research and what is actually in practice. And because of this disconnect between research and coaching practice, somebody has to suffer. Now, who suffers? Ultimately, the athlete suffers. Okay? Now, this differences is common across the world. However, when it comes to India, the gap is larger. Okay? The disconnect between researchers and coaches is large, and I call it the Indian sports science paradox. We all know sports science has been catching up in terms of research. More recently, there are a lot of research papers. Okay? And with government's initiative like the honors subscription, okay, now we have access to more than 100 sports science journals in India, available freely. So what I did, the moment I was invited here by Dr. Utsav, I am an academic researcher. I made a search in one of the largest indexing database, okay, Scopus. I did a search with the keyword sports science, and I found there were almost 25,000. Let me be precise, 25,559 documents published in Scopus database with the keyword sports science. And what I noticed was there was a gradual increase in the number of papers being published more recently. You can see here. Now, my question to everyone in the audience here is research output by country linked to winning medals? How many of you agree with this statement? How many of you disagree with the statement that research papers by country related to winning medals? Great. Now, I repeat my question. See the numbers here, the top 10 countries with the highest number of publications. What do you think now? So now, as a researcher, when I see numbers, I get excited. I saw some numbers, and what I did was I extracted the number of papers published by 15 countries, the top 15 countries with the highest number of publications, and the number of medals they won in each Olympic. I'll go with 2024 Olympic first. And I ran a correlation analysis. And surprisingly, what I found was a significant correlation between the number of papers published by a country with the number of medals they won at the Olympics. Again, these are not peer-reviewed. Okay? So there might be some flaws, but then again, there is correlation. And one time, it might be coincidence. I did it again for 2020. I limited the search result to 2020 time frame. And then the number of medals top 15 research output countries scored in the Olympics at 2020 summers. Surprisingly, we found significant correlation again. 2 times maybe a coincidence. I did ran for the 3rd time. Delimited the number of results to 2016 Summer Olympics, and there was again significant correlation. Now, those of you who are academic researchers here, a significant correlation with a Spearman's rho of 0.71 or 77 can be considered high correlation. Now, here is what I call the Indian sports science paradox. Between 2024 and 2026, India was 8th in terms of publication output, which means we are now producing good quality evidence. We are now doing good in research. We are now moving ahead with a lot of research opportunities for academic people. But for some reason, this research output is not getting translated to practice. All my academic friends would relate with me here. Correlation is not causation. With this, I would like to again move ahead with my presentation. Now, we all agree that we are doing research. Okay? India is doing good in research, but for some reason, it is not getting translated. Now, I have a friend of mine, a coach. I asked him, okay, hey, a recent paper was published. Did you get time to read? Have you read that paper? Is it going to change your practice? The first answer that he gave me was, okay, you are doing good research, somebody is doing good research, but who is going to explain me? It is very tough. Honest answer. The next answer was, hey, I'm very busy with my work. I'm dealing with athletes. I'm dealing with their problems. I don't have time to read your research paper. This was the first 2 statements that he gave me when I asked him about the new research papers. Now, for me as a researcher, if India wants to succeed in achieving heights in terms of sports, we need to have evidence-based practice. And IOC support evidence-based practice for athletes' well-being. Again, let me be very frank and honest here. Researchers or research and coaches are 2 different boats sailing apart. And when they don't talk, there is friction. When there is friction, both boats will sink. The gap, all the researchers here would agree, research that we conduct are rigorous, controlled, and hypothesis-driven. Okay? So we frame a hypothesis, we frame a research question, we try to control the environment, we try to control all the extraneous variables, and then we conduct research. Publishing is very slow. It sometimes takes 12 months, 18 months, 3 years of time frame to get from research to publication. And there are, of course, some publication bias that favors certain interventions, certain programs. That's always there in the academic forum. And then for researchers, for us, building generalizable knowledge is more important. This is the priority. However, for a coach, it is different. They have contrasting aims, goals. If you see, they need rapid, adaptive, and performance-driven solutions. They need something that is quick. and they need real-time decision making. Okay. There's a problem, I want a decision right now. I want to make the changes right now. I cannot wait for your research paper to get published for 3 years and then I get the solution. No, that's not the case with coaches. And they need context-specific solutions right now, immediately. This is my problem. My athlete is not improving for last 4 weeks. My athletes are hitting plateau. Give me some solution. And if you ask a researcher, okay, let me frame a hypothesis, let me frame a research question. It will take 4 months, 3 months time frame to collect samples, to collect data, and then write a paper, publish it, another 2 years. By the time, coaches are bored. And the focus for a coach is to win competition. So now, you see here, researchers and coaches have two distinct goals. For me as an academic researcher, publishing in top tier journals is my priority. I feel a sense of achievement. For a coach, winning competition is a sense of motivation. Two different goals. But then somewhere we need to bridge that gap so that we have the same common goal. Even if coaches try to practice evidence-based coaching, there are some barriers. Barrier number one, language barrier. So if you read research papers, they are all statistics driven. You have p-values, you have confidence interval, you have HSD, effect size, a lot of academic jargon. Now, let me be honest here. Many early career researchers, they still struggle with this statistics. How can I expect a coach to understand these numbers, these p-values, confidence interval, HSD? Difficult for coach. Time and access gap. They don't have time to read. I'll give you an example. Plyometric jump training. There are over 1,200 papers alone for plyometric jump training. If a coach wants to implement plyometric jump training, he will have to go through 1,200 papers. Now, it's very difficult for a coach to find signal from that noise, which paper to select. Difficult. They don't have time. Sometimes they don't have access. And many journals are, they don't have open access publication framework. It's difficult for them to get papers. Context mismatch. Now, let me reiterate again that research is conducted in a very controlled scenario. We try to control all the extraneous variables that can affect our result. Okay? But in case of coaching, we have to manage the contextual variables. We have to manage the extraneous variables as a coach. So now, something that shows improvement in performance in a lab condition might not directly implicate or improve performance in a real lab setting. Last and very important, perceived conflict between a coach and a researcher. For a coach, experience is important. I have an experience of 20 years. I have an experience of 30 years. Why should I listen to somebody who has never coached? Why should I listen to his numbers? There is always a conflict between a researcher and a coach. These are some of the barriers that we need to finish. And cost of this divide. Number one, inefficient training program. If coaches are not listening to researchers, if researchers are not listening to coaches, we end up giving inefficient training program to our athletes. What happens? They don't improve. Players, they don't improve because something that was supposed to improve them, we are not implementing. Athletes, injury risks. Second burden. Now, let us go back to plyometric jump training. 120 jumps is optimal. And if coach prescribes 800 jumps per session, imagine what would happen. My athlete would always be injured. This is something which is a risk. Lost competitive advantage. So now if we, I'm talking about India, if we don't practice evidence-based coaching, somebody else is going to do it. They would have that competitive advantage compared to us. Somebody is going to do it. If we don't apply, if we don't start now, somebody else will do. And this has been happening for past 20, 30 years. This is already there. And lastly, slower athlete development pipeline. We all know the concept of long-term athlete development plan. And it works on evidence-based coaching, evidence-based principles. If we don't practice evidence-based principles, imagine how a long-term athlete development plan would work. It won't. Now, who pays the price? Ultimately, the athletes pays the price. But the question that we all need to ask, why should athletes pay the price of a divide between a coach and a researcher? And now, let me again reiterate why traditional approaches have failed. Myth 1, if I publish it, coaches will read it. Nobody reads. Okay. If I published a paper in 2021, somewhere in 2025, some coach will be reading it. It takes 4 to 5 years, sometimes 6 years for somebody to read my research paper. It's difficult. So, coaches don't read research papers. Okay. We have that myth. I have done my research. Okay, warm up. Small-sided games will work. It's fantastic. It will improve your performance. But then I don't see it in practice. I don't see it. Myth number 2, one-way coach education. So I was invited for many coach development programs to speak on evidence-based practice. The result, I don't see any improvement. So one-way education will not fix it. Coaches, they have experience working with a lot of athletes. They don't want some statistician, some researcher to come and give lecture to them. Okay, this is what you do and you improve. No, they won't listen. Myth number 3, sports sciences or sports scientists should control the implementation. Again, very wrong. Many times we as a researcher, we feel we are the one who should control. Okay, this is the training you as a coach should be doing. We try. Sometimes we feel like we have that superiority complex. We are researcher, we are academic people, we should be in charge. That is again not the case. Okay. Coaches, they have expertise. They know the athlete's psychology. They've been working with athletes for the past 10, 15, 20 years. Okay. They have created so many Olympic or national medalists. We cannot just go jump in as a researcher and expect them to take in everything that we say. Not possible. Myth number 4, the foreign researchers proved it will improve us as well. No. Something that works with Australian athlete might not work with our Indian athlete. We have genetic difference. We have socio-cultural differences. We have socio-economic differences. Some research that has been conducted in some other country might not work well with our athletes. So we need more research on our own population. Now, when coaches stop, one, when we as a researcher arrive with solution that coaches didn't ask. And evidence that we provide does not address the coach's specific pain point. And sometimes the implementation burden is perceived too high. Many times I have seen researchers go in and ask coach to change everything, all the periodization, programming that they do, okay, change everything, which is not possible for a coach. Now, here I want to propose some solutions to bridge in that gap. And the first thing that we need to do is avoid one-directional communication and make it a bi-directional communication model, where both coach and researcher speak to each other. Strategy number 1, we should co-design research questions. now researchers and coaches should sit together and design research based on the problem that the coaches are facing. Give them a solution. Number 2, coach-friendly research communication. So instead of using academic jargons, p-values, hazards effect size, moderate improvement, instead of that we can use numbers. Okay, if you do this intervention, your athletes will improve by 5 centimeters in jump height. Okay? This protocol shows that you will be faster by 10%, by 15%. Give them the numbers instead of telling them p-values, interaction effect, all the stuff. Third, there should be regular communication between a coach and a researcher. If I don't speak to a coach, I don't get to know their problem. If I don't get to know their problem, I won't be able to find answers for them. Fourth, invest in coach education for critical appraisal. So now, as I said, there are 1200 papers in plyometric jump training. Not every paper is equal. Not every paper is of high quality standard. So we need to educate the coach to find out the right paper for their research question or for their question. And last strategy, to build personal relationships. Best thing to do is the researchers should be a part of the coaching team. What I firmly believe is if researchers are a part of the coaching team, they get to know the real life problems of coaches. They might be able to answer those problems. I want to share a case study from Rashtriya Raksha University. So I was an assistant professor here 3 years back, and we have been developing a human performance lab and conducting research. So I want to share some studies where we tried to find solutions. He is one of my colleague, Madin Hina. He is an assistant professor and a judo coach and a national judo referee. And 3 years back, when he was enrolled in a PhD program, we had a discussion. We had a discussion over judo performance enhancement. And he told me, in the whole world, there are only few researchers, possibly some 6 or 7 researchers who have been doing research on judo performance, mostly from Brazil. And that made us think, why not we find some solution for our own athletes that he was working with back in Arunachal Pradesh. So we co-designed a research question to see how adding some conditioning activity during warm-up can improve performance. And we found both squat and ballistic jumps, when added to a normal warm-up protocol, is more effective in improving performance of judo athletes. Now, moving forward, we realized when he was accompanying the athletes to judo competition, there was a problem. Squat rack were not available in the arena. Then we decided, let us see some protocols wherein we don't need to use squat rack. We can do it through jumps, we can do it through isometric protocols. That's when we realized that performing lower body exercise as well as upper body exercise without requiring any equipment in a real life in a real life competitive scenario can be useful to improve performance. Then, again, there was a problem. The problem was between warm-up and between bouts, there was a gap of 4 to 5 hours. So a warm-up session would start somewhere around 7 and 8 a.m. and the bout might extend to, let's say, 1 o'clock, sometimes 2 o'clock. There was a huge gap. That's where we came up with a strategy called priming, which suggests if you conduct certain conditioning activity in the morning hours, the positive benefit can prolong up till afternoon hours. So right now, we are trying to co-design a research question wherein if we perform some conditioning exercise during warm-up in the morning hours, if it can prolong the performance enhancement up till afternoon hours. So this is still in the protocol development stage, and we are trying to collect data from our judo athletes, possibly in the next 1 or 2 months. So the whole idea of me sharing these case studies is that we aim to find real-life solution for judo issues, judo problems. Now, there are some responsibilities that I believe we as a researcher should have. Number one, we need to shift our mindset. We are not expert delivering truth. We are there to support and help the coaches. We are not there as a supreme leader. No, we are there to help coaches. Number two, learn coaching. We as researchers, we should learn coaching. When we learn coaching, we get to know the difficulties a coach faces. When we know the difficulties a coach faces, we get to have more good research ideas. Third, collaborate. Don't dictate what the coaches should be doing. Instead, collaborate. Be a part of the team. Talk together. Okay? Find the solutions together. And if possible, try including a practical implications section in the papers that you publish. I have few suggestions for coaches as well. Our responsibility, your responsibility as a coach, first is to engage with researchers. Okay? They are not enemies. They are there to support your endeavor as a coach. Okay? Ask researchers for help. Whenever you are stuck with your athletic performance, if your athletes are not performing well, ask researchers if they can help. Don't wait for them to come and ask. Ask researchers. Third, share your data. Okay? When you share your data, I'm pretty sure researchers can give you a lot of information from that data. And be honest with what works and what doesn't work. Be honest, so that researchers can help you with finding the true solution, correct solution. Now, I have a vision in mind. I have a vision in mind. As a researcher, as a coach myself, I have a vision in mind. I want to see a world where coaches regularly ask researchers for help, and researchers, they are ready to collaborate. I want to see a world where evidence is available in forms coaches can actually consume. Maybe in forms of visual. Nowadays, they've started this small one-pager templates. What do we call it, Avinash? Pardon? Infographics, yeah. One-page infographics. That can be a good start. New interventions are tested with coaches, with athletes, in their real-life scenario, training scenario. And remember, friends, Olympic success will be based on integrated research coaching teams, and not siloed teams or siloed experts. Lastly, I want to see a world where Indian coaches lead the world in evidence-informed practice. That's it from my side. Thank you so much for patiently listening to my talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thapa. But the panel is incomplete. Whatsoever may happen, but the insight should remain. Sir, please take it. The insight should remain. We should justify the conference. We should go ahead with the rigor which we have identified, and we should deliver what we have promised. And with that note,